Hello. In this recording from our Justia webinar, Mastering the Close, Earning Trust and Delivering Results for Attorneys, Heather Lyle guides you through how clarity, active listening, and nonverbal strategies can achieve meaningful outcomes in high-stakes conversations. Remember, if you'd like to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So as Nina said, today we're going to be talking about closing conversations with confidence, because let me tell you all, this is a key business skill. I laugh because everybody always says that, communication is a soft skill. And I always push back and say, actually, it's a critical skill. You've got to be able to do it in a meaningful and effective way with the clients that you're serving and with the people that you work with as well, too. So my goal for this session today is to empower you to guide conversations towards trust-based, meaningful outcomes. And through clarity, active listening, and some nonverbal strategies that we're going to throw into the mix here as well too, you're going to learn how to navigate objections with empathy and achieve some win-win results, which I know is what we all want. So by mastering trust building and genuine connection, you'll gain the confidence to drive impactful outcomes and high stakes discussions. All right. So before we move on to some meat of this material today, I have to tell you all about a story. I was working with a partner in Houston, Texas. And he was telling me, he was very proud of himself because he was telling me about a big pitch with a private equity client that he was able to get the pitch done in 17 minutes. I mean, it's like he knew it down to the minute. And I was like, wow, that's impressive here, right? Now this particular client that I was working with, and we're going to talk about the DISC profile here in just a minute, but my guy, he was a dominant style. He was an extrovert and very task oriented. So think about the type who's like, let's get the job done. That was my client. I mean, he was a bottom line me, just let's move quickly. Let's get the thing done. That was his style. Now, the prospect that he was working with was a CFO of a private equity company. And the CFO is what we call a conscientious style on the DISC profile. The CFO was reserved, a little bit more of an introvert, okay, and highly task-oriented as well, too. So this particular CFO, I mean, think your typical accountant, needs lots of information in order to make decisions, okay? The more, the better. Give me more spreadsheets. It's all good for them. Highly logical, analytical as well, too, but just this person needed a lot of information. So think about this. If my guy is so excited that it takes 17 minutes to finish up a close and he's working with somebody who requires lots of information in order to make decisions, you can imagine there was probably some struggle there. And frankly, my client did not end up getting the business. I ended up working with him after the fact. But nevertheless, he didn't get the business. And he found out later that the CFO, because he asked, he was just like, because they spent a couple of months in the pipeline process trying to, work through this deal. And the CFO was just like, I had a lot of questions and you seemed like you were in a rush. So I just have to ask, do we all tend to we all get in our own little, hamster wheel of life, right? And we're just going as fast as we can, trying to keep afloat. We tend to not pick up on cues and signals from the clients that are sitting across the table from us as to what they need. And here's the thing, when it comes to having purposeful and meaningful conversation, and especially getting deals to a finish line, we have got to be able to interact with them in a way that's meaningful to them, not just how quickly we want to get it to the finish line. All right. So again, today we're going to be talking about some of these strategies and tactics that you can be using to help you get to the finish line in that meaningful way by developing trust and rapport, by picking up on those nonverbal communication signals as well, too. So before we go any further, really quickly, I just have a quick QR code. I'd love for you to link up with me on LinkedIn. I am constantly pushing out content every single week on LinkedIn on some of the content that we're talking about today, practice development, how to build your business, and other key pieces as well, too. So connect with me on LinkedIn, if you will, where I'm just constantly pushing out material for you. So for today, let's talk about our quick agenda. We're going to be talking about the psychology of trust and closing conversations, the trust building framework, and the power of nonverbal communication and closing. It's probably one of my favorites. I taught on this just yesterday. It's fascinating material. And closing strategies for high stakes situations. Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, but first, trust. I mean, you all know this, but it is the foundation of every, I mean, I say successful business relationship, but it's the foundation of every successful relationship, right? Without it, closing deals, it feels forced and transactional. And with it, closing becomes that natural next step. It doesn't feel as forced, okay? So, trust building, we have to remember that it's a process. It is not a one-time event, but yet many professionals make the mistake of thinking that trust is built on a single moment in time. So a great pitch, a perfect handshake, or a polished presentation, okay? But in reality, trust is built over time through consistency in your actions, reliability, credibility, okay? Clients and colleagues they're subconsciously evaluating you from the first interaction. You know it because you do it too, okay? So every email, every meeting, how you show up to those meetings. Okay. Like, are you ready to roll when you show up to those meetings? Or are you trying to figure out where the heck you are? All right. So think about that as well, too. And again, we're going to talk about some nonverbal communication here in just a bit. But also, your follow up is trust building as well. So, how many of you have sent emails to the professional services people that you work with? So you send emails, you send text messages, and it takes days and days and days to get a response back. That fractures trust. Okay. So, when we talk about reliability and credibility, I mean, this is how responsive are you? Okay. That is that deposit in the trust account, so to speak. And I want you to think of it like a bank account because every positive interaction, listening, follow through, providing value, that makes a deposit. And every misstep, being too pushy, not delivering on promises, it withdraws from that trust account as well. So, clients make decisions based on emotional and logical factors. This is really interesting stuff. So, even in highly analytical industries like law, finance, accounting, I work in all of those industries, clients don't just make decisions based on numbers and data. They don't. Emotion plays a huge role. And in fact, emotion plays probably the biggest role. It's so interesting. Neuroscience research shows people buy on emotion and justify it with logic. Okay. And some of you have probably heard this before, but it is so true. So this means that your clients are addressing, do I trust this person? Do I like the vibe of this person? Do I feel confident that they know what the heck they're doing and their level of expertise? Do they understand my needs and challenges? I think so often, we walk into professional services offices and we see, the degrees up on the wall and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, which that's important. We have to have those in order to do what we do. But at the end of the day, your clients want to know, that's great, that's wonderful. Can you help me? Can you help me get to the finish line on my problem? Right? That's what they really want to know. And they learn by, discovering whether or not you can help them do this by that connectivity, that connection that you have. Okay. So do they understand my needs and challenges? That's what your clients are thinking. So if a client doesn't feel like they trust you, it won't matter how logical your solution is, where you graduated, who you've worked for. They don't care, right? It won't matter. They'll hesitate to move forward if they don't feel like they can trust you. They'll hesitate. I mean, again, we do this too when we go and buy things, right? So, the role of confidence and credibility in a closing. People, they buy confidence, okay? When you communicate with certainty, clients feel safe moving forward. So, how do you project that confidence? Okay, we're going to talk about this here in a few minutes, and then we're going to take a deeper dive on the 4 main communication styles, which is going to teach you a lot. But did you know that smiling and eye contact establish almost immediate trust and rapport with just about anyone? Okay, immediate trust and rapport. Okay. Eye contact, it shows honesty and engagement, while a smile shows warmth and openness. All right. So strong, steady tone of voice as well too signals expertise, clear, decisive language. It signals we want to avoid that wishy-washy phrasing like I think or maybe. Nobody wants to walk into their attorney's office with an I think or a maybe. They want to hear confidently what you can bring to the table. Also, consistent follow through. Let's talk about that because I work with a lot of professional services firms, a lot of them, big, big firms. And follow through seems to be a key theme that I see. And here's the thing, that follow through, it builds credibility over time. The fastest way to lose a deal is seeming uncertain, hesitant, overly aggressive, and not following through as well too. So trust is built when you show up as an authority while also prioritizing their needs over your agenda. So we have to meet people where they're at. That's what I say all the time. We've got to meet them where they're at. We have to identify their particular communication style. We've got to adjust our message accordingly, and we've got to do that by establishing trust first. So remember this smiling and eye contact. It establishes almost immediate trust and rapport. Okay. All right, let's move on. Trust building framework, 4 pieces. This is easy peasy to remember. Clarity, listening closely, identifying communication styles, and nonverbal communication. All right. Trust is not just a feeling, it is absolutely a process. And if we want to close deals successfully, we need a repeatable framework that ensures we're earning trust through the conversation. So, again, these 4 pillars, they create the foundation for any high trust, high value relationship. All right. So let's talk about some clarity. Be clear on the goal of the conversation and set clear expectations. One thing that I always tell my clients, it's like, if you assume you lose, if you assume that your clients know XYZ, like, don't assume that. You've got to be crystal clear and you've got to tell them. You've got to tell them that. All right. We've got to listen closely. I call this levels of high empathy. You're highly empathetic if we can listen closely to the needs of our client. So most people listen to respond, not to understand. And that can be a problem when it comes to closing conversations. Why? Again, people, they buy based on emotion and justify it with logic. Right? I mean, we just talked about that a second ago. So when we listen closely to what's really going on, we can take them to the closing table a lot faster. We've got to identify communication styles because here's the thing, not every client processes information the same way. If you're speaking in your natural communication style instead of theirs, you risk creating some friction. Like the example that I gave you at the very, very beginning of this webinar with a client who was a very dominant, results-oriented, let's get out of here as fast as possible type, and he's meeting with a type that needs a lot of information in order to make decisions. There was friction. Like my client did not meet his prospect where he was. He just wasn't. And what that resulted in was they didn't get the deal. And it was a good 6-figure deal. Okay. So we've got to be sure to identify the type, the style of that person before we even go into that closing type of a conversation. And then, of course, nonverbal communication. People decide whether or not they're going to trust you before you even say a word. So how are you showing up is the biggest question. It takes 7 seconds for someone to be able to identify, hey, am I going to trust this person or not? And a large part of that is decided based on nonverbal communication signals. Okay. All right. So let's move on to our next slide here. I am sure some of you have probably seen this, the DISC profile. The DISC profile is another research-based tool, if you will, that's out there. Goodness, I know a lot of my clients have used the PI index for onboarding, new employees. They've used the Myers-Briggs. That's another one. I mean, there's strengths finders. There's all sorts of different types of assessment tools out there. What I love about the DISC profile is that it's communication based. So it helps you to understand what is your specific communication style and how do you need to adjust your message to other styles that aren't like you. Okay, so let's do quickly. I just want to be able to quickly go through what the DISC profile is because this is going to really help set the foundation for moving forward in the next few slides. So we have the dominant type. This type is a task-oriented extrovert, okay? They are direct, firm, strong-willed, results-oriented type people. They can come across as forceful at times too, for that matter. Again, they're task-oriented. So these are the types of people who are like, oh, what are we here to do today? When they walk into a meeting, they will actually say, what's on the agenda? What are we here to talk about today? That's a dominant type of person, okay? Next, as we move over to the red side of the scale, we've got the influencer types, all right? These are extroverts that are people-oriented, all right? These people are very warm in nature. They're outgoing, they're enthusiastic, optimistic, high spirited, lively. Think life of the party. That is the influencer type. We then have the steady relator type. These people are people oriented, but they're a lot more reserved. All right. Um, they're even tempered. They're accommodating. Think about people that you've worked with that are kind of like, they just don't want to rock the boat. I hear that a lot. I just want to keep everything calm, cool, collected, right? Don't want to rock the boat. That's a steady relator type. All right. They're patient, they're humble, they're tactful. They're thinking about people on their team. They just want to make sure that everybody's happy, is what they're thinking. And then you have the conscientious types. These are the reserved individuals who are very task oriented as well, too. And I tell everybody, think, typical accountant, typical engineer, lots of data, lots of spreadsheets. I need all of the things. Highly analytical, reserved. They're very private people as well, too. We also call them non-emotional at times. And all that means doesn't mean that they don't have emotion. They absolutely have emotion. They just don't show it. So it's like we talk about the big poker face. These people are really great poker face people. You can't quite tell. If you've ever walked into a meeting with a group of people and you just can't quite read someone, okay? I know some of you are probably like, yeah, I've been in situations like that before. That's likely a conscientious type, okay? These people, as well as the S types as well too, they require what I call a lot of processing time, okay? They're not the quick decision makers. They are the, let me read all the things, let me make sure I completely understand, let me make sure all of my questions are answered, and then I'll give you the decision. Whereas the dominant and influencer types are like, get me the executive summary and we are off to the races. I can give you a decision ASAP. Okay. So huge differences with these types of people and how we go about approaching how we solve their problems. Okay. So it's really critical for you to understand and to adapt to other styles so you can connect with them on a meaningful level, so you can see eye to eye, so to speak. Okay. So as you're looking at this slide, I want you to be thinking, where do you fit? Which one is your primary? Now, I'm not giving you a huge full discussion on DISC. If I do that, that'll be a 3-hour deal. But I just, for the sake of this particular side, where do you feel like you fit primarily? Okay. So think about that. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think either about a client that you're working with currently, someone in your office, okay, that you struggle with, okay, that you just don't see eye to eye. You struggle. Where are they? Where are they? All right, so just take a look at that and think about this as we move through the next few slides, okay? Okay, we're going to be talking about how to identify these communication styles. It's pretty easy. Again, there's only 4 buckets, right? So we've got our dominant types. How do we identify them? These types are direct, decisive, tough, and patient and demanding. All right, they are results oriented, get it done, bottom line me type of people. Again, like I said earlier, when they walk into a room, they're going to be like, what are we here to talk about? And they will say that, okay? They don't leave any room for doubt. They will tell you. Now, the influencer types, on the other hand, again, they're extroverts, just like the dominant types are, but they're the life of the party. They're asking, how was your weekend? Did your kids play ball this past weekend? Like, tell me about all the things. Oh my gosh, there's a great coffee shop. Have you been there yet? They're the chatties of the world. Okay, so that's the influencer types. Both extroverts, the dominant type, task oriented. We're here to get stuff done, and the sooner the better. All right, let's move on to the steady relator and the conscientious types. Again, both of these types are reserved. They're more introverted. The steady relators, how we can identify them, they're calm, they're steady. They also smile. They exude warmth. Okay, so they smile. They're people oriented, so they're going to smile, but they're more reserved. They'll sit on the back row. They will wait to pose a question until somebody asks them, what they're thinking. The conscientious types, the best way that we can tell these two reserved types apart is the smile. Conscientious types typically have the poker face, where the steady relators are typically warm. Okay, but the conscientious types, these are the people who will ask a lot of questions, typically more on a one-to-one setting as well too, or they're going to send you an a follow-up email afterwards with like a gazillion questions about all the things they need clarification on. With some of the sales teams that I've worked with before in the past, this type in particular, they're like, oh my gosh, the questions keep coming, they keep coming. And I'm like, yes. And the great thing about the S and the C types is once they feel like they have all of their questions answered, they will become loyal followers. Okay. So answer all of their questions. All right. Tell them all the things, give them all the spreadsheets, all of the PDFs, all of the information that you have about whatever it is that you're talking about. They will consume it and they will ask questions as well too. All right. But that's what they need in order to be able to go, okay, I trust this. I feel good. Let's go to the finish line. Okay. Now, this slide is a really, really good one. Take a screenshot of it, if you will. I don't care. But this is how we communicate with the different types. And the reason why this is so dang important, this really sets the tone for the closing table. Okay. Who is sitting across the table from you? What do they need in order to close the deal? Let me tell you, the dominant types, again, these are our extroverts that are task focused. These are the ones who are like, what's the bottom line? What do I need to do? Boom, let's move on. With these types, we have got to be direct, brief, and to the point. Period. End of story. Okay. If there's fluff, you lost them. All right. We don't want to waste their time. We've got to use a results-oriented approach. We've got to touch on the high points. We cannot give these people 55 pages of information to read. They expect you to do your job and give them a highlight reel of it. And if they want more information, they will ask for it. Okay. So the dominant types and the influencer types as well too. I tell everyone, it's like these types, we need bullet points and executive summaries. That's what they need. Again, if they need more information, they will absolutely ask for it. Now, the influencer types, they like to kind of liven things up a little bit. So we've got to allow for some time for socializing. We've got to lighten up. I'd say, lighten up, Francis. We got to have some fun. I mean, this particular type needs that in order to feel comfortable and to establish that trust. So for a lot of you who are like, I am not that way. I don't want to be that way. Okay, well, let me tell you, if a client comes into your office and is bringing a big deal to you and they are this way, I'm going to tell you, well, if you don't try to meet them where they're at, they will not trust you. And the likelihood that they will do business with you is highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. I was talking with a group yesterday. You'll appreciate this. Some investment bankers here in the Dallas area. I live in the Dallas area. And there was one gentleman said that he had a client who was an influencer type and he is a dominant type. And he was just like, oh my gosh, I need to, whenever this, my client calls me and needs to have conversations and they're actually working on another deal for this client. He was just like, and he's never really worked with this client. It's kind of been passed on to him and that kind of thing. He's like, I just need to be able to tell this client to like shut this and move on down the road. How do I get them to shut up? And one guy in the back row was just like, tell him that you charge by the hour. That's what you need to tell him. And I was just like, and if you do that, you will lose that client. Okay. Because you will fracture trust. You will fracture trust. This particular type, the influencer type, needs to feel the connection. Okay. They've got to feel that there's a relationship. Okay. And when we don't do a good job of trying to make that happen, that's where they don't trust. So I'm going to ask you, if you're not the influencer type and you work with maybe this type, or you have clients that are like this, what are some things that you can do? I'm going to share you a couple of things here in just a little bit as we move on through the slide deck as to what specifically you can do to be able to connect with this type a little bit better. So communicating with the steady relator and conscientious types, you can see here, I won't read through all of the bullet points here, but we've got to be patient with both of these styles, okay? We've got to draw out the opinion of the steady relator types. We've got to show how our solution is going to benefit not just them, but everyone involved in the transaction. Why? Because they're people, and they just remember, they don't want to rock the boat. They just want to keep everybody happy. All right. So we have got to be able to show how our solution is going to benefit them and all of their key stakeholders. We've got to relax and allow time for discussion. And we cannot pressure either this type or the conscientious type as well, too. We've got to give them time to evaluate and decide. And what I always hear from my DNI types are, but I need to know yesterday. Like, I got to know. Are we doing it? Are we going? Are we not? What's happening? Here's what you do. You've got to tell these particular types that are more reserved, we've got to tell them what the deadlines are and what the ramifications are if they don't do things by a certain deadline too. They've got to know. I mean, again, we talked about earlier, developing trust is we've got to set out expectations. We've got to tell them what's going to happen if they don't sign by XYZ date, right? Okay. So we've got to give them lots of information in order to make those decisions. Now, the conscientious types, we've got to stick to data and facts. We got to keep on task. We don't socialize with this particular type. They just want the information. Just give them what they need. All right. Okay, we're going to be moving into talking about nonverbal communication. We tested this video. I am going to start this video. Just give me 2 seconds. You're going to love it. You're going to like it. Hold on just a second.
I cannot have you on here without going to body language. You're like an expert on body language, both in the science and the understanding. And then just, if you're watching, I feel pretty embarrassed because I'm supposed to be a communicator. My hands are down at my side. I'm doing nothing. And you're like, you are going to town. I'd love to know, based on the science and what you discovered, let's assume this, Vanessa, it's a leader's first day. So they just got hired onto a team. They got their very first meeting, their first presentation. They're going to make a first impression. They're walking into the room. What do they do? What do they say? Where do they sit? How do they interact? Give us some advice.
Okay, so hands first. You mentioned hand gestures. This is a weird one. Most people think about eye contact first, and I love eye contact, but actually the very first thing we look at eye tracking studies, is we look at people's hands. This is actually left over from our caveman days. Back in caveman days, if we were approached by someone or someone walked into a room, the very first thing we looked at was their hands to see if they were carrying a rock or a spear or some kind of a weapon. This still remains in our habit, and also now we're looking for hands to show intention. Are they going to wave? Are they going to acknowledge us? Are we going to handshake? Are we going to high five? Are we going to hug? Are they going to hand me something? So we're very aware of gestures. And so the moment you hop on video, good morning with a little wave. Hey, everyone, good to see you. It literally deactivates the amygdala where we process fear. When you walk into a room, give a little wave around the table. Hey, everyone, good to see you. So happy to be here. So hands first, out of pockets. Ideally visible and greeting, and not hiding behind a computer or a briefcase or a laptop, right, hidden. So hands first, super easy. The second thing is we want to be broad. And I don't mean we should walk into our rooms like Rocky, right? Like with huge, broad posture. But the mistake that a lot of people make, especially on video, is they creep their shoulders up to their ears and they sink their head down and they go, hey, good to see you. And they have no space here. We know as humans that when there's not a lot of distance, this is a weird measurement, but this is the measurement that matters for your perceived confidence. The distance between your earlobe and your shoulder. The bigger that distance is, the more someone goes, oh, she or he looks really relaxed. And that is more contagious. So when you walk into a room or hop on video, I want you to, in a way, pretend like you're wearing a cape, right? Like shoulders down and back, head held up high. Don't crinkle your shoulders up. Don't carry a book in front of you really closely. That little tiny measurement actually really matters for perceived confidence. Oh my gosh, there's so many, but those are the first 2 easiest ones.
So I love that. And I'm going to set this up, like you said, to sometimes that you need to give a little longer example to give you time to think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask.
Okay, that was Vanessa Van Edwards. She wrote a fabulous book called Cues, C-U-E-S. And it's just an incredible book about the art of nonverbal communication. I tend to take it a little bit further and dissect it down by your disc type as well, too. So let's talk about a little bit about what she alluded to here in the video. So when we talk about reading the room, okay, when you walk into a room, you're meeting a new prospect, you're working with your team, whatever the thing may be, we want to pick up on energy and unspoken signals, all right? Now, we can typically categorize this into 3 different buckets. Are they all business? Do they just get straight to the point? Are they chatty? Okay, if they're chatty, we've got to mirror their energy before diving into the details, okay? Hesitant or reserved, all right? We've got to use what I call strategic silence. We've got to give some space And we have to be the ones to prompt the questions. Okay. So just think about which one are they? If they're all business, you got to get straight to the point. Like, boom, let's go. All right. Are they chatty or are they hesitant? We got to read the room. We've got to pick up on those energy and unspoken signals. So I mentioned the use of DISC and how we can look at some nonverbal signals based on your particular type. Again, I want you to be thinking about what do you feel your type is? Where do you fall into this mix? And to think about the person that you struggle with the most, whether that be a client or someone on the team or whatever like that. I want you to be thinking about that too. So our dominant types exhibit very direct, strong posture and are results driven gestures. Okay. So they will use their hands, they will use their pointer fingers, they will be very big in posture as well too. They command the presence when they walk into the room. Okay. That's the dominant type. Now, the influencer type, like what I was talking about earlier, these are the extroverts that are people oriented. They're very expressive and they use animated gestures. I mean, I use animated gestures because I train people and I just am trying to get people engaged into the content that I'm speaking on. They are also high energy folks as well too. All right. That's how we can tell. The steady relators, these people are calm. They have soft gestures and they have a very approachable demeanor. Again, and the smile is a key indicator for our steady relators. And then the conscientious styles over here, they're very reserved, precise movements, controlled expressions. All right. They are not going to be, they're, again, think poker face. All right. That's how you can tell the conscientious apart as well, is that they just have that poker face. All right, let's talk about some common nonverbal mistakes that you've got to avoid. And think about, again, as you're going to the closing table, as you're getting ready to sign on a contract with a new client or whatever, what do you do? And here's what we see a lot. And these are mistakes that we want to avoid. So the crossed arms. I hear so many people say, well, I'm just comfortable that way. Like, or it's cold. I'm just going to cross my arms. But the fact of the matter is that this is a signal for I'm closed off. Okay. It's really hard to approach people when they're very closed. So we want to remain open. All right. Lack of eye contact. This signals disengagement and a lack of interest, and it does not help to develop trust either. Fidgeting. Oh my goodness. I was on a call last week with a client. I was like, please stop. So she's in her chair and she's in a swivel chair. I'm in a swivel chair too. Anyway, she's in a swivel chair and she's just constantly swiveling on the Zoom camera. And I'm like, whoa, it's making me sick. Like, please, like, I just need for you to zone in. I need eyeballs, right? So this signals nervousness. So we want to, do whatever you got to do to keep things grounded, incorporate some breathing exercises, whatever you've got to do to keep those nerves at bay, but be mindful of the fidgeting, okay? Monotone or soft voice. This absolutely 1000% signals a low confidence. So we've got to be mindful of that vocal volume and tone. And especially for my more reserved people, they tend to be more soft in tone. So if you know you are this way, if you're listening to me and you're like, yes, that's me. I want you to be thinking about when you're in those conversations, again, like what Vanessa was talking about in the video, putting on the cape, throwing back those shoulders, chin up, and then use a stronger volume and tone so people can hear you. All right. So, and again, that will exude confidence. The softer tone does not exude confidence. All right. So what I want you to remember by this, it takes 7 seconds for someone to develop a first impression. So your body language absolutely matters. Absolutely matters. In fact, I think there's a statistic that I read once that up to 93% of communication is within your body language, right? People can read you before you even speak a word, so to speak. So I want to dissect this and give you some actionable strategies. Again, be thinking about where do you fit on this profile. So if you are more of that dominant style, you tend to use assertive body language. Again, that strong, purposeful gestures, maintaining direct eye contact, that upright posture and control that you exude. But your blind spots is that sometimes you can come across too aggressive and too intimidating. All right. And when you're working with clients, this can be a deal killer. All right. So what can you do? What can my D types do? Soften those facial expressions. Avoid crossing your arms. Smile. Use some gentle head nods. Like when an affirmation, like if someone is saying something and you're agreeing, use a gentle head nod. All right. But smiling works a lot as well too, and uncrossing those arms. So we just want to soften up just a little bit. Okay. Just a little bit. All right. The influencer type. Okay. These types typically, again, are the energetic, enthusiastic types, and they frequently use animated gestures, smiles, lively expressions, that kind of thing. Their blind spot is that their enthusiasm could be misinterpreted as insincerity or a lack of focus. Okay? They don't mean that, but that's how it can come across. So, what can eye styles do? We've got to control the hand gestures, pace your speech and movement, and the biggie here is focus on listening. All right? Influencer types tend to talk way too much. And at the end of the day, we learn so much from our clients by listening, not talking at them. So the influencer types, when I'm working with my clients, I tell them, you gotta zip it up a little bit. I mean, I know you've got a lot to say and you're really excited about it, but at the end of the day, we've got to listen. We've got to show empathy, and we show empathy by listening. So that's what you can do. Some top takeaways for the extroverts. Again, think about that open body language. We've got to be mindful of the introverts around you and tone down expansive gestures. All right. Right? I'm sure some of you have probably heard of the the mirroring effect. Think about if you're with somebody new for the first time and you haven't been around them and you don't know their style, mirror what they're doing. All right. So that's the best way to keep the comfortability and the trust factor high with those relationships. We've got to listen intently because my dominant and my influencer types tend to want to steamroll over and talk over people. So we've got to be sure to pass the mic and let others talk. We've got to be sure to listen and ask their opinions and not hog that mic. All right. Let's talk about physical proximity and touch. We've got to be mindful that introverts like to keep some distance and don't like physical touch unless you know them well, right? I mean, I'm a hugger typically by nature, and so I'll want to go in for a hug with somebody. If I don't know them well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not, even with people that I don't know, especially if they don't even go in for a handshake. So again, mirror. If the person that you're meeting isn't going in for a handshake, then you shouldn't either. This is all about being aware of how we come across and how we can make people feel comfortable who are with us. If we can make them feel comfortable and we're developing high levels of trust, we will get a deal to the finish line. All right. Eye contact is another biggie. We've got to maintain eye contact as much as 70% of the conversation. All right. And this is really here's the thing. If you've got I know all of us have our phones out, right? I've got kids coming home from school and that kind of thing. I will tell somebody, hey, I'm expecting to get a text message from my kiddo at 3:45. So I just want to prepare you. If I pick up my phone, I just have to make sure that we are on the same page and know what's happening, right? But otherwise, I'm going to try to maintain that eye contact even on Zoom. Even on Zoom. All right, let's move on. So, actionable strategies for the steady relator styles. The steady relator, they tend to exhibit calm and composed body language. These are the people who are more reserved and they're people focused. They often have relaxed postures, gentle gestures, soft facial expressions. But here's the thing, their blind spots can be perceived as disinterest or a lack of confidence as well too. So the S types, what they've got to do is they've got to, I call it look big. All right. Just like what Vanessa was talking about in the video, throw those shoulders back, chin up. We've got to look big and use subtle gestures such as a head nod. We've got to increase that eye contact. And this is also going to hold true for the conscientious types here in a minute as well too. So if you tend to be a little bit more reserved, I want you to really focus on maintaining big posture. Okay, to maintain that confidence and increase some eye contact. All right. The conscientious style, again, these types are reserved. They use precise, controlled gestures. They have some subtle facial expressions. Again, the poker face. Think about poker face. Their blind spots are that they can be misinterpreted as cold or aloof. All right. We don't want that, but that's how people can perceive you. What you can do if you're a C type and you're working with a client who is not like you, we've got to smile, we've got to make eye contact, lean in to listen, okay, and nod to affirm. And again, avoid crossing those arms. Avoid crossing arms. Okay, let me give you some top takeaways for my introverts here. Blocking, Vanessa talked about this in the video as well, but make sure that you're not inadvertently blocking yourself with a laptop, purse, or other object, or covering your mouth with your hands. I cannot even begin to tell you how many Zoom calls I've been on or whatnot, and people are like this, and I'm like, I can't see your face. Like I can't see and your tone is muffled as well too. So don't block with your hands as well either. Facial expressions, because introverts are really great listeners, be sure to smile and use head nods to show affirmation, okay? And be proactive. Before a large group meeting, you may want to reach out and have a pre-meeting in advance to talk to whomever is going to be leading that meeting that you want to have the mic. Because here's what typically happens. In fact, I was at a training yesterday and this was said by a C-type person. I feel like I get talked over and I feel like nobody really asks me to participate in the conversation because it takes me a minute to process. And so they just skip right on over me. Okay. My advice for her was this. You need to have a conversation with that person who is skipping right over you. And you should say, hey, I require some processing time. It takes me a minute. I can't answer questions just like this. That's your dominant and your influencer types who can do that. But me, I need more time. So can you come back to me? I would really appreciate it if you can come back to me. Talk with people and tell them what you want. If you don't tell people what you want, you're never going to get it, right? So I just want you to be mindful of that. And again, eye contact. Be sure to hold that gaze and not look down while speaking. All right. We don't want to do that. We want to look at people. And again, this is in general. I get a lot of questions about, well, what about certain cultures? What about, okay, you need to know who your audience is. All right. You've got to know who your person is and what is going to work for them. All right. This is just general information. But if you've got specific clients with specific needs, you need to do your work on that and know what they need. All right. Quickly, aligning your body language with your message. Again, the eye contact, build that trust. It helps build trust. Hold it for 3 to 5 seconds. We don't want serial killer eyes. We just want gentle gazing. We want to move on and then gentle gazing again. Posture, we want to stand. Sit tall for confidence, shoulder back, chin up to appear bigger. Your gestures, use purposeful hand gestures, but not overly done, not the jazz hands. Like I know, I've worked with some Italian New York people and it's just lots of hands. And I'm like, you got to tone that down depending on who you're talking to. And tone, we want to lower our pitch at the end of sentences to sound authoritative. We don't end with a question mark in the tone, okay? We don't end with a question mark in the tone. We don't end with a question mark in the tone. All right, see the difference there? So just be mindful of that pitch as well too. All right, let's talk about some closing strategies as well too for high stakes situations, which I know a lot of you are in all the time. So closing high stakes deals, whether with a big client or executive or a high pressure situation, requires more than just a great sales close, a pitch. It requires more than just that. You need to understand when to push, when to pull back, and how to adapt to that client's communication style as well too. So in these scenarios, the stakes are higher, the pressure is greater, and the decision-making process is often way more complex, right? So if you go in with that one-size-fits-all type of approach, you're going to lose the deal before you even start closing the conversation. So let's break down the key strategies to close these deals under pressure while ensuring that trust and momentum stay intact. So tailoring approaches for difficult or high pressure deals. Some deals take some time, while others require you to move very, very fast. So the key is knowing what kind of deal you're working with, okay? We've got to understand the decision-making environment as well too. Is this a group decision? An individual decision? Are there multiple stakeholders involved? We've got to ensure that everyone feels heard before pushing for a close, if that's the case, right? Is there a hard deadline? If time is a factor, you've got to structure your approach with urgency, but not pressure. Okay, we've got to be urgent, but not pressure. We've got to explain to people what the ramifications are if we don't meet certain deadlines. But at the end of the day, we can't pressure, otherwise people are out on that. Okay, so what is their risk tolerance? These are just things to be thinking about. High stakes clients are often risk adverse. You need to reassure them with credibility and clarity. Okay, so if you happen to sense hesitation, you can feel the vibe. I mean, you all know we can feel the vibe when someone's like, I don't know. I want you to, instead of immediately countering with logic, I want you to ask this: what would help you feel 100% confident moving forward? What will help with that? This puts them in control while still keeping the conversation open. Okay. So what's going to help you? What's going to help you feel 100% confident so we can move forward? We've got to manage expectations while keeping momentum as well too, which that can be so tricky to do, right? So one of the biggest challenges in closing high stakes deals is managing expectations, both yours and the clients. So how do we keep these deals moving without rushing the clients? We've got to clarify steps at every stage of the process. Do not assume, like I said earlier, if you assume, you lose. So don't assume the client knows what's coming next. You've got to be explicit about timelines and actions, okay? We've got to remove uncertainty as well too. High pressure clients hesitate when there are too many unknowns. So we've got to preemptively address potential concerns. And I'm sure some of you have frequently asked questions and you know what people are going to ask. Preemptively talk about that. Okay, just preemptively do it. They're going to look at you and go, wow, you're a rock star because you're already calming me down before I freak out. Okay, so just do it. Frame the decision as progress, not pressure. Instead of saying, are you ready to do this? We want to say, this is the next logical step based on where we are in the process. Does this feel like the right move for you? Okay. If you feel the conversation stalling, we want to bring people back to their original goal. So whatever they originally stated, you mentioned XYZ. How do you feel this solution helps you get there? Are we there yet? What do we need to do so you feel 100% confident? Okay. When to push forward and when to step back. Oh gosh, this is such a good one. Because here's the thing. I mean, it's like we always struggle with, okay, when do I lean in and actually get somebody to do what I need for them to do? And when do I need to pull back on this? So how do you know when to press for a decision versus giving space? It really comes down to reading their verbal and nonverbal cues. Okay. This is what we just talked about. This is where it really falls into line. When we push forward, when people push forward and they're asking a lot of questions, I know some of us might think, oh my gosh, they're asking a lot of questions. What does this mean? This is a good thing. I want you to think about, like, whenever you have bought a car or bought something, a big purchase in your life or whatnot, and you're at the dealership. I'm just thinking about a car that we bought recently. We ask a million questions. We ask a million questions because we're interested in buying the thing. All right. We don't ask questions for things that we're not interested in. We just don't. So if people are asking detailed questions, this just means that they're engaged and just need that final push. Okay. So think about questions as a good thing. So when to push forward, when they bring up competitors. All right. This is an opening to highlight what makes you different. So I want you to try to reframe these narratives that I know that we've all been thrown our way, and we're like, that feels icky, sticky to me. And when they start bringing up their competitors, it's just like, okay, we're done with this conversation. No, you're not. No, you're not. This is an opportunity for you to say what makes you different. They express urgency. If timing is critical, guide them toward a decision with very clear steps. Again, this is setting those expectations, right? So let's talk about when we need to step back a notch. They keep saying, I need to think about it. This means they're feeling pressure, okay? Instead of pushing, we ask, what's the biggest factor in your decision right now? Like, what's holding you back? Talk to me about that. Or they start disengaging, shorter responses. They're looking away. This means that they're feeling overwhelmed. So we've got to pause, acknowledge, and give some space, okay? They say they're unsure about your price tag. They're unsure about the value, right? So we've got to give them some proof, testimonials. How many of you out there have testimonials that you can show your clients, your white papers that you've written and done, that you can share with them as well too? Or a softer next step instead of forcing a yes or no answer. We don't want to force anything. We want to make this feel natural, okay? So if you feel resistance, you've got to pause and we've got to reframe that conversation. You need to say something along the lines of, I don't want to push this if it's not the right fit. Can we talk about any remaining concerns before we move forward? I don't want to push. I don't want to push you into anything, but just what are your concerns? I just want to make sure that we address all of your concerns. All right, let's talk about some key takeaways by the disc type. Again, this is being able to identify who is that person sitting right across the table from you. So, each client's decision-making process is driven by how they naturally communicate and process information. So, if you adapt your closing strategy to their style, you're going to create less friction and a smoother path to yes. Think about my example that I gave at the very, very beginning, right? My dominant style client was like in and out of that pitch in 17 minutes. Whoop. And his CFO prospect was just like, whoa, you ended that so fast. I didn't even have time to ask all my questions. Like, I don't even feel prepared to hire you. Okay. That is a problem. That's where the friction is. So the dominant types, if you know that the client sitting across from you is that dominant type, we have got to keep it brief, direct, and results focused. We've got to emphasize speed and efficiency. These people move fast, okay? So focus on results because they move fast. The D types, they don't need the full backstory, all right? They don't need to know all of the crazy details. They just don't. They need to know what's in it for them and how fast it will work. All right, the best closing approach for the D type is, here's the bottom line. This will get you X in Y time frame. Let's move forward. Okay, bottom line them. That's all they want. And again, if they have questions, they will absolutely ask them, and you've got to be prepared for that as well too. But your best closing approach is, here's the bottom line, folks. We can do X and Y time frame. Are you ready? All right. The influencer type, again, these are the extroverts that are very people-oriented. All right, we've got to make the close exciting and positive, and we've got to highlight social proof and some enthusiasm as well too, which I realize, I mean, y'all are like, okay, I'm an attorney. You know what I do, enthusiasm, really? A lot of this is in your approach as well too. Okay. I types, they love energy. They love people, and they love success stories, which I know all of you have probably a gazillion of these, right? So if you're too robotic with them, and again, this is about your delivery. This is about your speech patterns. This is about your vocal tone and volume. Okay. If you're too robotic, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. Okay. Our study relator types. Again, these are people-oriented people that are a lot more reserved as well too. So we've got to reinforce security and reliability. We've got to ensure that they feel supported in their decision as well too. Okay. S types, they want assurance that they're making the right choice. If they feel rushed, they will back out. Okay. So something that you might want to say is, I know this is an important decision and I want you to feel completely comfortable. Here's how we can support you every step of the way. Okay. They are interested in the support. Now, the conscientious types, again, this is the more reserved type that's more task oriented. We've got to provide detailed rationale and logic. Okay. We've got to allow a lot of room and space for analysis before they commit to anything. They need data, logic, and time to process. And again, if you push too hard on this particular type, they're going to resist. Peace out. They're done. So again, your best approach with this particular type is, here's a detailed breakdown of everything that we have discussed. Take your time to review. If you need more information, please let me know. They want all of the details. They want it all. Okay. All right, some key takeaways for mastering the close. We've talked about this. Closing should feel natural, not forced. Trust is the foundation of successful negotiations, and adapting your approach based on the client's communication style, that's key as well too. All right. So let's talk about applying these strategies. We're almost done. We're almost to the finish line here. Knowledge is only powerful when it's put into action. Okay, so now that we've covered these key strategies for closing deals with confidence, let's talk about how you can start implementing these techniques immediately. We want to track your success and continuously improve those closing skills. All right. So let's see. This isn't about making massive, overwhelming changes overnight. I just want you to take a couple of nuggets of information and be able to implement it immediately. That's really all I want you to do. It's about thinking about this differently as well, too. We're meeting people where they are, not necessarily applying what we want from them. We do want them to do certain things, right? But we have to guide them there. All right. It's about making small intentional shifts that will transform how you build trust, handle objections, and close high value deals. So we've got to clarify every closing conversation. So we've got to, before those meetings, we've got to define the goal, the client's desired outcomes. At the start of your conversations, we've got to set those expectations right from the get-go. All right. At the close, we've got to summarize key points, address those concerns, and provide clear next steps. I can't preach this enough. We have got to provide clear next steps. We cannot assume that they know what the next step is. We have got to tell them what the next step is, okay? And tell them what we want from them as well, too. We've got to adapt to the client's communication style. I want you to listen for those cues. Are they direct? Are they that dominant type? Are they social, like the influencer type? Are they patient, like the steady relator type? Or are they analytical, like the conscientious type? Listen for those cues, okay? And adjust accordingly. So D types need fast decisions. I types need energy. The S types need reassurance, and the C types need lots of information, okay? We want to improve those your nonverbal presence as well too. So all of the nonverbal stuff that we talked about today, think about what are a few nuggets that you can incorporate into your daily language and life with your clients. And we also want to use some active listening to uncover objections. All right. Sometimes we get too busy talking and we forget to listen. And I'm telling you, clients will tell you anything and everything with some good prompted questions. So we want to be sure to uncover what those objections could be by active listening as well too. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you all? That's about it. Seek feedback and accountability. Ask. I find it's super simple to ask people, how do they wish to be communicated with? How do we want to get to the finish line? What's going to be the best way for us to do this together? Just asking some simple questions helps get you to the finish line fast. So with that being said and done, oh my gosh, it's almost at the top of the hour. Go ahead and put this up for Q&A. Again, put tons of content out there on LinkedIn as I'm waiting for questions to come through on the chat. Check me out on LinkedIn if you would like as well. But here we go. Do I have any questions? I want to make sure that we capture this.
Looks like there's a couple. Just a reminder for those of you that may want to submit your questions, you can do so by clicking that Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen and submitting them there. They should also be able there for you to view as well, Heather, if you'd like to look.
Okay, got it. I see that here. All right. Okay. What are the most effective ways to gauge whether a client truly trusts me during a closing conversation? I think the most effective way again, think about eye contact as well. What are their gestures? Watch those arms. I mean, I'm telling you, when people will show you that they are done, that they are closed, when their body is closed, okay? Are they hiding them? Are they doing this? Are they reaching for a notebook, to hold up against them? Like this? Like, what are they doing? Are they showing that they're closed, or are they showing that they're open? All right. So if they're showing that they're closed, that is your cue. That is your signal to say something along the lines of, okay, I'm getting the feeling that maybe there's some questions on the table, and I just want to make sure that we get there. Okay. So I hope that helps. It says anonymous attendee. So anonymous, well, they're all anonymous, it looks like. Okay. How do I tailor my closing approach when dealing with emotionally charged clients or those who are skeptical of attorneys? How do I tailor my approach? Okay. Emotionally charged. Emotionally charged is hard, right? Which been there, done that many, many times before, and skeptical as well too. I think the best thing that you can do is this: acknowledge skepticism. Just acknowledge and just say, hey, this is a high stakes situation. I realize everyone here at this table is at a level 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're all riding on 10. And I just want to put that out there. And I realize everybody around this table is probably skeptical of all of us, right? I have to reassure you, and I've got all of these client testimonials, which if you all are not collecting client testimonials, you absolutely should be, hands down, should be part of your marketing strategy. You need to have client testimonials. Why? Because of emotionally charged clients who are skeptical of attorneys, okay? If they're skeptical, all we have to do is just acknowledge that they're skeptical And here's all of these people that we've worked with. And if there's a couple of people that would be cool for them to call or email just for clarification and make sure that they feel confident and comfortable, have a couple people on hand so they can call them as well too. All right. We want to try to reduce the emotionally charged. Okay. That's what we want to do. And we do that by giving them information. Okay. When we give them information, we acknowledge their feeling at the time as well too. That helps. I'm not saying it's going to work every single time. Okay. But I'm saying it helps. Okay. All right. What are the best ways to respond to client objections without appearing defensive or overly accommodating? I'm going to go back to, you need to know who you're talking to. Okay. So here's the thing. If a client is a dominant type, which I'll be honest with you, I live with the dominant type as well too. They're very blunt, to the point, like, give me the bottom line. You can be blunt and to the point and give them the bottom line. All right. Like, you can do that. If you're talking with somebody who you can tell is a little bit more reserved, and just watch their body language. Are they closed off? Like, are they turtling up? Like, what are they doing? Watching them really signals to you how you should be responding. Okay. So just watch for the signals. I'm telling you, these nonverbal cues will tell you so much if you just watch and pay attention to it. Okay. And the question was not, I hope I answered. Nina, did I answer that question? Okay. Was there anything else I should have? Okay. Okay. Can you reiterate one more time how to communicate with a dominant person? I've got so many resources out there as well too. So just follow me on LinkedIn, and I talk about the dominant types all the time. People always have issues with the dominant types, and I love the dominant types. I work with them all the time too. How you communicate with the dominant person, you've got to meet their energy where they're at. Okay. Now, that being said, blunt, brief, to the point, direct, brief, to the point. Okay. So if you have a partner that you're working with or a client that you're working with, that they have sent you an email that's just like, hey, CC, or they wouldn't even say, hey, CC, please send me blah, blah, blah by XYZ date. Okay. You send XYZ by such and such date, period, end of story. We don't fluff it. We don't, sugarcoat it. We don't talk about what happened this past weekend. They don't care. They don't care. Why? They are focused on the task at hand. Okay. They're just focused on the task. They're not focused on you as a person. They're focused on the task at hand. What needs to be done to get it to the finish line? And I need for you to help me get it there. That's all they care about. Okay. Doesn't mean that they don't care about people. They do, but they are just focused on task. Okay. So I hope that helps. So how you communicate with a dominant person, direct, brief, to the point, period, end of story. Don't fluff it. Okay. How can I turn a not right now into a future engagement opportunity without being overly sales driven? Okay. This happens a lot as well too. A not right now. This is where I would say something along the lines of, I tell you what, I want to be able to provide you with all of the information that you need in order to make a decision. And is there anything else that I can give you? Is there anything else that you need? Tell me, what do you think? What are some issues? What are some things that you're working through that might prevent you from moving forward? Let's talk about that. Okay. But yeah, turning a not right now, those are typically people who need more information. I would also, again, I go back to I call it social proof, testimonials, like, providing that, making sure that they feel comfortable. The not right now people, those are your steady relator people. They can be indecisive at times too. We want to give them as much information and show that people are using you and have had great experiences with you and that kind of thing. Okay. They need to see that social proof, so to speak. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any more open questions. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's all of our questions for today. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for all of your insights on communication, your tips, and answering those audience questions. And thank you all so much for submitting your questions. We'll go ahead and wrap up. So I'm just going to take over sharing really quick. All right. Well, thank you all so much again for joining us for another Justia webinar. Again, as I mentioned at the top of today's presentation, for all the lawyers here today, just a reminder about our Justia Connect Pro membership and all of the benefits that that provides you. So with Pro, you get an enhanced directory profile with a Pro badge and no competitor ads shown, as well as access to our AI-powered Justia chat to help you connect with those leads and put some of those great communication tips that we learned today into action, as well as the ability to get CLE credit for watching live and on-demand webinars, and access to our $200 credit for select Justia marketing solutions. If you'd like to learn more, you can visit pro.justia.com. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.